Welcome hobbyists to some highlights of my recent project. The 1/144 scale Millennium Falcon, the Last Jedi edition by Ban Dai. I received this as a Christmas gift from my wife in December 2020. She really did her research on this and loaded it up with a lighting kit and a photo etch panel. This kit was started in January 2022 and completed a year later. I keep thinking I'll eventually get through these kits faster than a year at a time, but maybe not until I retire. A lot of YouTube videos were reviewed to prepare for this project, so I highlighted in this video some features I've not seen elsewhere. I like to shout out to the following channels as they inspired me through this project, and I found myself regularly reviewing their content for inspiration. Ken Springs, Hobbies with Jose, Model Chili Scale Models, and Barbatos Rex. As I was reviewing these videos and others, one thing I noticed is the landing gear. There's a lot of details such as the cabling that I've not seen done in models, so I set out to try and create something myself. I went through my scrap wire bag and found stranded wire that had 0.30 millimeter strands. I used this wire with some 28 gauge hookup wire that was about 0.34 millimeters. I then created a wire wrap jig to get the spiral cable look as the original images. I began by soldering the core wire to the nail tops, and then solder the wrap wire to the core, and I begin wrapping to make a spiral cable. After about 15 to 20 minutes, I have a cable just over an inch in length. I then unsolder and repeat the process for the remaining cables needed. And here is the final product, and some images of the cables installed in the landing gear. One thing I noticed is that the landing gear was difficult to insert and remove, and with the delicate photo etch parts they can easily be damaged. I saw someone had used magnets, so I did the same, making the individual parts easily removable if needed. And since I can now remove the landing gear, I finished off the covers as well. The one process that stood out from all the videos I watched was that of weathering, and a common comment was to have fun with it. So I did. I got to try out all kinds of weathering methods, from washes to oils to off-the-shelf rust, mud, and dirt effects, and even some dry options as well. As mentioned earlier, I received a lighting kit with this model. This kit has a lot going on, almost too much. My recommendation is don't feel you have to use it all. I began laying out the circuit diagram for this kit because I knew I'd be making changes and additions. This kit has two modes of operation controlled by the power switch, landing mode and flight mode. I did not want to have to change the switch back and forth to control this, and I was planning on adding an IR sensor to the project anyway. After some experimentation with the AT-Tiny13A, I found I could just hit the reset line to flip modes, and this was easily accessed at the programming port on the side of the board. I also tapped the mode line so my audio circuit could know what state it is in. Overall, I added two more controller boards, one for the audio and the cockpit and gunner backlights, the second for the landing gear and searchlight control and mode switching. Both were connected to the same IR receiver. Here is the IR remote used in the various key assignments. Keys 1 through 9 control track play along with the left and right key for previous and next. 0 can be used to mute the audio, up and down for the volume control, start number for the landing and searchlights, and OK for switching between flight mode and landing modes. Here I'm using my development board to test the individual controller circuits that will be used in the model. The IR receiver was a challenge as I did not have any idea of where to put it. As I was looking at the module, it was black and about the same shape of the holes I added for battle damage. I decided to enlarge one of the holes and mount the IR receiver behind it. Overall, I'm very happy with this location. I began to work on the fiber optic cables. In my view, the lighting kit had one drawback in that the smallest fiber cable was 0.5 millimeters, and I really needed to use 0.25 millimeters for a few areas. I also wanted more cables in certain colors and less in others, so I began to disassemble the cable bundles. As I'm going through this process, I also started attaching some of the fiber optic cables. Unfortunately, I did not do my research prior to this, and I started with super glue. As I learned later, big mistake, and those cables eventually broke as the glue makes the cable brittle and eats through the outer layer. I began experimenting with methods to glue these cables in place and settled on E6000 glue as it stays flexible, does not eat the cable, and can be removed if needed. I also used this glue for reassembling my fiber bundles. I then wrapped the cables and the LED using metal foil tape. This foil helps protect the fibers from melting or bending when I added heat shrink tubing to further secure the bundle. For the gunner stations, I used liquid glass to fill in all the cutouts of the photo etch. Once it was dry, I applied color using Tamiya clear colors. I used liquid tape to seal the edges of the photo etch and block any light bleed. Taking 2 clear LEDs, I made an assembly and mounted them to the back panels of the gunner stations. I used the E6000 glue to attach a few fiber optic cables and then covered areas around the cable with black liquid tape so that the LEDs would not wash out the fiber optic lighting effect. The interior of the gunner stations were still a bit dark, even with the panel lighting, so I added another LED as backlight. This LED was attached to a piece of clear sprue in a T-shape and placed behind the gunner's seat. It was then able to backlight both gunner stations. I then made a reflective shield using aluminum foil tape that covers the top part of the gunner stations. This helps reflect and direct the light to the color cutouts and prevents light bleed inside the model. Here's a quick snapshot of the crew. And here they are in the cockpit. I used all the same materials as mentioned for the gunner stations. I used one LED light mounted to the holder provided for the model and added a few fiber optics for the control console and back panel. The lighting kit came with a USB cable for powering the board. I cut down the cable a bit and used it to charge the LiPo battery circuit. I used Tamiya Desert Yellow for the base edges and mounting assembly. For the base I wanted a sand color and texture, so I used Tamiya Light Sand Diorama paint. And now for the final assembly. The top half has the upper gunner station, cockpit, and IR receiver. Controller board 1. Controller board 2. The main lighting board. The LiPo battery and charger board. And the sound system in the base of the model. And now the completed model with the lights off. And with the lights on.